Patrick looked down at the dirt on his usually pristine shoes and wrinkled his nose in disgust. "What is this dump?" he exclaimed, turning to his companion Arthur. "Where did you bring me?" "This is not a dump, my dear, but a fully functioning settlement," laughed Arthur. "Come on, are you trying to say that people live here?" Patrick was still surprised. "Well, yes, and there, by the way, is one of the locals. Would you like to get to know him better?" Patrick turned his head and to his surprise saw an older man who looked like the most ordinary, homeless person. He was wearing old, heavily worn clothes, his unkempt, tangled threads barely resembling hair, and a bruise on his dark, dirty face. "Is he really coming towards us?" Patrick arched his eyebrows disdainfully. "I hope he's not contagious or lousy. These tramps can have anything. Arthur, I beg you, tell him not to come any closer. Why did we come to this flea pit?" "Oh, stop it," laughed Arthur. "They're almost all like this here. And we need this land to belong to your company. Now, we'll take a look around, draw some conclusions. We'll make a rough plan, and let this scarecrow not bother you. Well, he walks and walks. The road is free. Maybe he's going to a bottle. You won't find anyone here but bums and old men, and old women anyway. We'll have to come here more than once if we want to buy this land. Arthur, where did you see a person here? This is just a parody of a person and nothing more." At that moment, the stranger approached them and smiled upon hearing Patrick's words. "You're mistaken, my dear. I'm a person, just like you. Look, I have hands, legs, torso, head and heart, and a soul too. And I would never allow myself to humiliate anyone." "I don't understand." Patrick interrupted him, turning to his companion. "Is this tramp trying to teach me life? I've lived long enough." "Well, you see, Patrick," laughed Arthur, "you used to complain to me about being bored at the office. And now look how many impressions you've had in the last 20 minutes. The homeless man smiled. "So you're Patrick. Well, I'm Ron. That's what everyone calls me here." "What?" Patrick and Arthur exchanged glances. "Ron? Well, nice to meet you, Ron," Patrick said seriously. "Now, Ron, go away, please. You see, we're busy. What are you looking at? Do you want money?" "Well, who refuses money?" Ron nodded in agreement. "Go ahead if you don't mind, but I do not understand what kind of business you do. You're standing on the road looking around. I thought you came here to breathe fresh air." Patrick grimaced. "What kind of fresh air can there be next to you? I'm telling you, get out of here. You're ruining the whole picture for us." Ron cautiously took a few bills that Patrick handed him, and clutching them tightly in his hand, hurried away, shaking his head and muttering something under his breath. "No, did you see that?" Patrick nodded at his receding figure. "No thank you or goodbye." "Okay, Arthur, let's get down to business. Get out your notebook." They spent more than half an hour before they got in the car and left the village, talking excitedly about how much money they would have to invest in the paperwork and, in general, to tear down and rebuild everything there. Until the evening, Patrick was thinking about a new project, but when Lynette burst into his office, everything was upside down. "Thank you, darling," she shouted. "I had been waiting for you the whole evening, and you're just sitting there staring at your screen." "Lynette," Patrick smiled at his passionate fiancée, whom he had grown accustomed to in their year and a half of dating. "I'm sorry, I'm really busy. So many problems have piled." "What?" She slumped into the chair opposite him. "Do you have problems in your business? And how long have you had them?" "Well, there aren't any special problems," replied Patrick. "I'm just a bit busy, that's all." So you're busy enough to forget about our dinner at the restaurant, are you? I understand I was wrong, but don't be angry and forgive me. Patrick conciliated, taking her hand. Let me call and book a table right now. Where would you like to go? Without hesitation, Lynette named the most expensive restaurant in the city. Patrick frowned. He didn't like its pomp. Why there specifically? He asked. Let's choose somewhere simpler. Oh, come on, Lynette snapped. The pizzeria around the corner? What's wrong with that? It's quite a decent place, said Patrick. We all go there for lunch. Are you serious? Lynette raised her eyebrows incredulously, and Patrick laughed. Okay, let's go to a restaurant. He gave up, finally. They had a great time, so Patrick was very surprised when Arthur approached him the next day and slapped him on the shoulder. Listen, Patrick, I've always been good to you. You know that. We were friends with your late father, and he asked me to help you with everything. Arthur, you're scaring me, said Patrick. What happened? Well, I'm uncomfortable telling you this, but Lynette called me this morning and asked about the state of your business. She seems to think you're bankrupt, and she's wondering if she should spend time on you if that's the case. You said you were getting married in the fall. I'm sorry, Patrick, I'm not used to poking my nose into other people's personal lives, but you're like a son to me, so I can't keep quiet. Acting like this, Lynette didn't show herself in the best light. She's with you as long as you're on top, but if something happens, she'll quickly leave you. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Yes, I understand, said Patrick thoughtfully, and Arthur continued. You see, I'll be 60 soon, and I know this life better than you do. Women like Lynette are good for meaningless encounters, but creating a family with them is a foolish mistake for men. My Helen and I have been through fire, water, and copper pipes. We've lived in wealth and poverty, tested each other in different situations, and now I can say with confidence that I'm very lucky with my wife. She's never let me down, no matter what happened in my life. So here's the thing. I want you to be happy when you reach my age, too. Do you understand? I understand. Patrick nodded again. I'll think about what you said. Yes, think about it. Oh, and one more thing. Another contender has appeared for your project. In general, competitors don't rest. Keep that in mind. This conversation left an unpleasant feeling in Patrick's soul. He had never been deluded about Lynette, but he was attracted to her ease, beauty, and ability to give him pleasure. Patrick had never imagined her in casual clothes with a child in her arms, or even in the kitchen. It was strange. He was going to marry this girl because it seemed like a natural result of their relationship. But what then? They had never lived together except for those periods when they went on vacation. Those situations were entirely different. These thoughts did not give Patrick peace, and he could not get them out of his head. He decided not to say anything to Lynette and just observe her. However, she did not notice his mood, preferring dinners in restaurants and hanging out with her friends in clubs. 2 days later, Patrick completely forgot about the homeless man he met in the settlement, but somehow he ran into him on the steps of his own office one morning. "Patrick!" exclaimed Ron, grabbing him by the sleeve. "I was just looking for you." Patrick squeamishly pulled his hand away. "Who are you anyway?" "Don't you recognize me?" Ron was sincerely surprised. "It's me, Ron. You know, it didn't go well back then. You gave me money and I didn't even thank you. I was in a hurry, you see. But now I found you deliberately to say thank you." "Ah, yes, I remember," Patrick said. "Although you look even worse now. Who gave you one more black eye?" "Oh, I just fell," said the homeless man. "Funny, it's hard to believe," Patrick chuckled. "Well, Ron, you thanked me, and I'm thrilled about it. And now, get lost. God forbid anyone sees me next to you." "Do you think still I'm not human?" Ron sighed. "What did you expect?" Patrick unexpectedly got angry. "Look at yourself. What kind of a person are you? You're begging, you're unwashed and unkempt, in some rags, you have a black eye on half of your face, and you eat what you find in the trash. Yuck! Disgusting! Do normal people live like this? And I'll tell you, Ron, soon there won't be anything left of your cockroach-infested shack. I'll build an elite cottage settlement there, and you get ready, like cockroaches, to scatter in all directions. Human? You're just a bum." "Before you judge me, Pat," Ron said quietly, "walk in my shoes. Feel what it's like when your loved ones turn away from you, judge you, when the whole world crumbles under your feet, and the ones you counted on laugh at you and drive you away. You know, Patrick, when it happened to me, I saw people without masks for the first time and realized who's worth what. But why am I telling you this? I bet you wouldn't last even a couple of days in the conditions I and everyone else live in. I wish I had something to bet on. I have no money, just like you have no conscience. You'll destroy our settlement? Well, we're used to it. We're being driven out from everywhere, and you're just like everyone else, there too, judging us. And anyway, I came to you with good intentions, to say thank you. And you," Ron waved his hand and walked away. But Patrick suddenly called out to him and then caught up with him. "You said let's bet. I agree. Let's make a bet." "But I told you I have no money," Ron said. "We'll do it like this. If I live in your conditions for 2 days, you'll gather your brothers and take them away from the settlement so that I don't even see them. And if I lose, I'll give you money. A lot. 20,000. Do we have a deal?" 50, Ron said. "Are you getting bold?" Patrick smiled. "Well, let it be 50. Sorry, we won't shake hands. I don't want to get dirty. Anyway, wait for me in your settlement tomorrow morning. I'll come and we'll start." Arthur couldn't help but cry out in astonishment when Patrick told him about his idea. "I don't understand why you need to do this," he said, "and I don't advise you to get involved in this mess. You know, you can fall rapidly, but to rise, that's a different story." "Exactly," Patrick agreed. "That's what I want. Not to fall, of course. I just want to see people from the inside. Ron, the homeless man, inspired me with this idea. And while I'm gone, could you please keep an eye on things for me? I trust you." "I don't like this idea, Patrick. What if someone recognizes you? Aren't you afraid of damaging your reputation?" "No, it's not serious. Just boyish nonsense." "Arthur, I've already made up my mind, and I don't like to go back on my decisions. You know me." "I do, Patrick. You're just like your father. But I can't support this idea of yours, I'm sorry." Patrick spent a lot of time persuading Arthur to help him. Then he went to a second-hand shop, bought clothes and shoes, and arrived in the settlement by taxi the next morning. Homeless people from all over the city often gathered here, as empty housing could be found here, albeit cold, but at least with a roof over your head. Patrick thought that no one would object if he also spent a couple of days here. But as soon as he appeared on the narrow street, 4 vagrants came out of the alley to meet him. "Who are you?" asked one of them, looking at Patrick through bushy eyebrows. "What are you doing here?" "Nothing," Patrick replied calmly. "I lost my home. My wife threw me out. Now I'm homeless. I want to live here with you." "You don't look much like a homeless person," smirked the second vagrant. "You're too clean. Your haircut is neat. You've recently shaved." "That's what I'm saying," Patrick began to explain. "Everything was fine with me until—" But he didn't have time to finish because the first one interrupted him. So you decided to live here? Did you get registered? Registration? Patrick was surprised. Yes, if not, we'll register you ourselves. The third vagrant laughed and immediately dealt Patrick a crushing blow that knocked him to the ground. They beat Patrick for a long time, or at least that's how it seemed to him. Then, when he passed out, they went through his pockets and took his documents, a little money that he brought with him, and a button phone he bought specifically for this adventure. After thinking for a while, they took off Patrick's clothes and left, taking them with him. The cold quickly did its work, and Patrick regained consciousness. He struggled to get up, but immediately fell back into the mud. He suddenly heard someone scream next to him. Patrick, shaking with pain and cold, turned his head and saw a poorly dressed woman of about 35 in front of him. "Oh my God, who did this to you?" she exclaimed, waving her hands. "You can't stay here, you'll freeze. Let me help you up and take you to my place. It's nearby. Here, look." She pointed somewhere to the side. Patrick wanted to smile with his broken lips, but couldn't, and only winced from a new wave of pain. The woman understood this in her own. "Don't be afraid. I live there with my son Teddy, who's 5 years old. And my name is Carrie. It's just the two of us, no one else. No one will hurt you anymore. Come on, let's get up. Quietly. Lean on me. That's right. Good. What's your name?" "Patrick," he murmured, not recognizing his own hoarse voice. In the tiny cottage house, a little boy was lying on the bed, looking frightened at the beaten, dirty man his mother had brought in. Carrie gently helped Patrick lie down on an old, saggy couch and began to carefully wipe his face and body with warm water from a bowl. "Call an ambulance," the man asked. "I think my ribs are broken." "No one will come here," she sighed, covering him with a blanket. "When they hear our address, they hang up the phone. Teddy is sick too, but even with a high fever, they won't take him. They say we are outcasts. Last winter, I carried him to the hospital and in the middle of the night, and they didn't want to take us in. They gave him a shot and kicked us out." Patrick listened to her story in disbelief. Finally, he said, "I need a phone. I'll call and they'll come for me. Do you have one? Mine was stolen." Carrie shook her head. "I don't have a phone. If I need one, I go to Tom. He has one." Patrick dictated Arthur's number to her and asked her to tell him he was waiting for him there. Carrie left and returned quickly. "I'm sorry, but your friend was taken to the hospital this morning with a heart attack." "That's what they told me." Patrick sat up sharply and screamed in acute pain. Carrie helped him lie down. "Please call my fiancée. Her name is Lynette." Carrie silently nodded, wrote down the number and headed for the door again. "I delivered your message," she said, returning. "And now let me feed you. And Teddy needs to eat too." Patrick didn't feel hungry, so he declined, but he watched as the boy ate pea soup and pearl barley oatmeal from his place. "Why do you live here? And what about your son? Can't he get up?" Patrick couldn't help asking. "He can, but he's very weak. He needs a complete examination to know what's wrong with him, and that takes money. One good person promised to help me, but I don't know if it will work out. We live here because my husband's family kicked us out. I got married at 25 and he was 20. We loved each other, but his family never accepted me. Even the years we spent together didn't change their minds. And then Sergei died. He fell off the balcony. Everyone blamed me and took me to court. I was pregnant then. My husband and I wanted this child very much, but he never saw him. I gave birth to Teddy in prison. And then, suddenly, I was acquitted. New circumstances of the case were revealed, It turned out that Teddy gambled away everything we had, and the apartment too. So he found an easy way to get rid of all the problems. Carrie sighed, paused, then continued. I'm an English teacher and translator by education, but with a criminal record, no one wanted to hire me, especially with a baby in my arms. I ended up on the street. One kind person helped me and brought me here. Recently, he brought money for Teddy's medicine and food. I saw him just now, and he promised to help you too. As Carrie spoke, the front door slammed shut and a young, beautiful girl appeared in the doorway. Lynette! Patrick exclaimed happily. How good you came for me. She looked closely at his battered face and said, So, it's true. You're broke now. Patrick, how could you deceive me? I trusted you, and I wanted to be your wife. Lynette, you've got it all wrong. I'll marry you, but right now I need your help. Take me to the hospital and give me some money. I want to pay off this woman. Money? Lynette shouted. Do I owe you money? You've sunk so low in just a few days. You're nobody now, and I came here just because I wanted to see everything with eyes. Don't you dare come near me. Got it? You're nothing. Saying this, she turned to leave, but then she bumped into a homeless man. She screamed in disgust and ran away, while the man turned to Patrick and smiled. Well, hello, Patrick. I didn't expect to see you like this. Ron, Patrick whispered and felt the blush of shame spread across his face. I'm sorry. As you can see now, I'm a nobody too. And it happened very quick. Stop it. We'll help you. You won't stay here. I think you already understand the lesson. I understand. Patrick nodded and a tear rolled down his cheek for the first time since he was a child. An hour later, Ron brought Patrick to the hospital. A couple of Patrick's ribs were indeed broken, and he had to spend more time in the clinic than he had expected. Lynette never visited him, and he didn't want to see her either. But when he was discharged, he immediately came to visit Ron. So, Ron, I brought you the money as promised. You won the bet. Congratulations, he said. Give the money to Carrie. I didn't intend to take it for myself. I wanted to help her. She needs to get her son back on his feet. I'll help Carrie anyway, and you can use this money to get yourself a place to live, fix yourself up, and come to me if you want a job. Ron nodded happily and extended his hand for a handshake, but then withdrew it, remembering that Patrick didn't like it. But Patrick took his hand and shook it firmly. And also, my friend, thank you for the lesson. What will happen to our settlement? Ron asked Patrick. I'll demolish it, as promised. Arthur, my friend and partner, has already been discharged from the hospital, and I introduced him to a new project. Here, we will build a medical centre and a pension for all those in need. The place and space will allow us to do this. In addition, the city authorities approved my decision, and I won the tender, leaving behind the main competitor. In short, very soon, I will be able to provide jobs and housing for everyone who wants it. And your son, Carrie, is awaited at the best children's clinic in the country. Everything is paid for. Don't worry. Carrie, crying, threw herself into Patrick's arms. She was deeply grateful to him for what he had done. 6 months passed. The construction of the medical centre was in full swing. Ron worked at the construction site, and Carrie, who returned home with her recovering son, thanks to Patrick's help, got him into a good kindergarten and started working in a canteen where all the construction workers ate. She lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of the city, which Patrick rented for her for a couple of years, and didn't know how to thank her benefactor. And Patrick was simply happy. Lynette tried many times to reconcile with him, but he had already met another girl, the future doctor of his clinic, and he knew exactly what true love was.